to make sure that everything syncs up. This is very awkward.
Welcome
All right,
to our live chat.
I think we are good now. Welcome to Book Club. This week we are talking about SADIE by Courtney Summers, which personally was my favorite book of 2018, but I know that's a controversial opinion in this crowd. So we're going to start with our ratings. So we're going to just go through and say, like, out of 5 stars, what you rate it. Feel free to let us know in the comments what your rating is if you've read it. If you haven't read it, it's not too spoilery of a book. You kind of learn the big secrets early on. So, but you should definitely read it if you haven't yet. It's a cool book. So the first person I have is Megan.
I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook, which I know is a thing we're definitely going to be talking about because I love the audiobook and I'm not sure how it would have translated not as an audiobook. But I really enjoyed it. There was just a lot of parts where I found myself having to rewind to be like, wait, what? And so sometimes I wished it was maybe a little bit more specific, particularly the ending, but I get that that's the point or whatever, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. So 4 out of 5.
We will.
I'm the next person on the screen, so I guess I'll go ahead and do mine. Mine's definitely 5 stars. It definitely felt like a book that was made for me because I really like true crime podcasts like Serial a lot. So, I go weird things with.
Oh
no.
Oh, Emma was having trouble with her Wi-Fi a little earlier, so maybe this is similar.
You guys all did great poker faces. I'm like, is it me or I understand?
Yeah. I can see Megan's eyes moving.
Am I back now?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
StreamYard like boots me off constantly.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I do think like the writing was sometimes lacking. Like it could have been maybe better, but I love the concept and the story enough that I could overlook that. I didn't listen to the audiobook my first time. I just read it. And I do think it's still a really good experience just to read as a print copy. And it does maybe help you keep track of what's going on a little bit better when you can actually see it. But I've listened to part of the audiobook, and the audiobook's really amazing too. So, and then I have Kelly.
I need to figure out how to position myself away from the duck.
The duck. The duck is Hank.
Yes. It was somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5 star for me, and I definitely boosted it to 5 on Goodreads because of the audiobook experience, because it was fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was just a very novel idea, if you will, and just how it was, like, I don't know, it was just very perfectly timed for the podcast era and true crime and all of that, which isn't my thing at all, but I still really, really enjoyed the story.
And then I have Erin.
Probably 3.5 stars. I had to bump off half a star because the ending just made me so ragey. Yeah.
And then Rachel.
I am probably the lowest. I'm at about a 3 or 3.5 stars. I didn't hate it, but I also really did not like it. I think I had a lot of issues with the main character and then a couple of writing issues. I think that's what kind of pulled me out of it. But I would like to listen to it as an audiobook because I think it has a good format for an audiobook. So maybe I would like it more if I did that. And, you know, if there's an audiobook deal of the day or something, and it happens to be that, maybe I'll give it a second shot. But at the moment, my rating's a little low.
Yeah, we've got in the discussion section, and Griswold is there and said, I haven't rated this book because I'm still working through my feels about it, but I think it was nearly flawless, which is awesome. This is like the first book club book that I think in my memory that you've loved. And Griswold is so excited. So
Yeah. I do think, because, I listened to like the first like 2 CDs of the audiobook, and I just didn't have time to finish it this week. And I do think that like it's really good, but also like not all of the narrators are like equally good. Some of them
are
like
better actors than others.
Some of the like minor characters that Wes McCrae like interviews, like who only have a couple lines, like they read them very woodenly, and I was like, come on, you couldn't put a little bit of emotion into this line.
You have 2 lines to sell me on this character.
Like it feels the character is being interviewed and is just like reading off a piece of paper, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a really cool experience to listen to, so it makes up for it. But.
Yeah, I honestly I was able to overlook that a lot because my head was like, well, sometimes in these podcasts people sound awkward because they're being interviewed for a podcast. And so like the whole podcast part was so immersive for me that I wanted more from his perspective.
Same. And Griswold loved Evelyn Hugo as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And also mentioned that their library had both the ebook and the audiobook. So she read along while listening, which is probably like peak SADIE experience.
Yeah. I was saying before we started that I think I don't know where you access it. I was reading somewhere. I think you can get just the podcast parts of it. And so you can like read the SADIE parts and listen to the podcast parts. But I'm not sure where that is. So.
Yeah. When I was Googling to make sure I spelled Courtney Summers' name right, when I Googled SADIE Courtney Summers, the first search thing that came up was SADIE Courtney Summers podcast. And so I suspect if you Google that, it will take you to
probably where it is. Yeah. Have any of you like listened to especially Serial or any other true
a
crime
little
podcast?
bit?
Yeah.
A little bit. One of my friends is obsessed with Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered.
Oh yeah. My favorite murder.
My favorite murder, yeah.
I like My Favorite Murder, but I get too paranoid, so I can't listen to it very much. But no, I really like the first season of Serial. Is like one of my favorite like storytelling things that's existed. And you can definitely tell that this is inspired by that sort of story.
I want to say that we listened to some of it while we were in the car going to Kelly's wedding.
That's possible.
Together.
I don't remember.
That might be when I heard it.
It's possible, yeah.
I know we listened to
when that
a
was.
podcast together.
Yeah. I don't remember. Yeah. But also, like, it's interesting you said you wanted more of the podcast parts, because I sometimes felt that way too. Because, yeah, I do think SADIE sometimes isn't the most, like, compelling character and narrator. Like, I feel like you never quite feel like you know her well enough, maybe? I don't know. I don't know if
My main issue with her was that I know she's supposed to be an unreliable narrator. I know she's supposed to be set up as mysterious and, oh, what a wild card. But I never felt any connection to like her. Even if I understood that she was supposed to be like a bad person, I was never like, there's nothing there for me to connect with or maybe presume that she might get better or like root for her. I was just kind of like, you're just kind of being dumb and like making bad decisions.
See, I didn't think she was a bad person or meant to be a bad person.
Oh, really?
I mean, she's out getting revenge. Her sister was like murdered by her rapist. Like,
yeah, no, like I get that she's like she's on a revenge plot and she's going for it, and I'm like, yes, I'm behind you, girl. But I guess that's the way it was, set up was very, I guess, trying to keep the mystery, and to me that just made her seem like she was making dumb decisions.
She wasn't like super likable, but I always found her compelling. Of like, I wanted to see where this was going, and I don't think I ever really bought her love for her sister as much as I was told she loved her sister.
I would have loved to have dug deeper into that. I did feel like there was a level of like guardedness between Sadie's POV and the reader that I would guess was done intentionally. But I definitely felt similarly. And I remember like my favorite part of the book was the part where Sadie is in the car with that girl. I want to say Kat, but it's not Kat. It's something.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
But she was in the car with that girl, and she just like wants so badly to have this like human connection with someone. And she just has felt like she has never been able to have that. And kind of with every person she meets who is like enthralled by her enigmatic personality or whatever, her just always thinking like, well, what if? Could I just like stay in this car and have her take care of me? I just really want to just like rest my head on her shoulder. And I always found that extremely interesting. But it never really felt like that was part of an arc. It was just like her accidentally showing you a bit of her personality, like the character. I'm sure the author did it on purpose, obviously, but it always felt like Sadie accidentally letting through with like the things that she really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have needed to be a much longer book if we were going to get more of her character arc. And I would have liked that, honestly, but it would have made me even more mad about the end. I'm not gonna lie. If I had actually really, really liked her as a character, I would have been even more choked. So,
but that is also kind of like a serial trope or whatever, you know, like you get to know them just enough that you think you might really, really love them, but then you don't ever get all the answers.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna ask because, like, we were talking about the podcast parts versus the Sadie parts. Like, why do you think it was like important to have both of those parts? Because I think it really was. Like, it would have been a very different book if you only had the podcast or if you only had Sadie's parts. I'm curious about what you guys think about how those like work together, I guess.
I definitely think it lent a sense of urgency to the story with this idea of like, well, she's gone. No one knows where she is. Otherwise, it would have kind of felt a lot more questy, which is hard to do well.
And I guess kind of like knowing that she doesn't show back up, like, so the whole time you're kind of wondering what happened to her.
And you're always kind of like one step behind what Sadie is doing in all the podcast excerpts. And you're like learning, oh, that's why she did this. So yeah, it unravels some of the mystery for you like a little bit at a time too, which I think is really good. Instead of, I think there would have been a lot of info dumps otherwise, right? Because Sadie would be like, now I'm doing this because of this. And
and I thought the information was layered in nicely of like who her father is and knowing that he's not her father, and just like it wasn't a steady flow of information on either side, but it was balanced very well.
He was really good at like filling in the picture and kind of keeping the reader on their toes.
Yeah, and every time he started following the wrong trail, it created this like, no, it's not her dad. She's not looking for her dad. Stop it.
Yeah.
When he would like find the right person, but they wouldn't give him the information, and you're like, you're so close.
Do you know what this reminded me of? In a couple little ways, like the main character and everything is the female of the species. You guys read that?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh, it's so good. Definitely
heard incredible things about it. It kind of came out pretty quietly, and I was like, and then everyone that I saw online is like, this is the best book I've ever read in my life.
So good. It's like Sadie, but better.
Yeah, Mindy McGinnis is an incredible author.
I will give it a shot.
Yeah. But yeah, I also feel like, I don't know, I feel like Courtney Summers was making interesting points with podcast versus Sadie's story, because all those true crime podcasts, like, they're fascinating and we're so interested in them, and you like don't quite think about the fact that like this is a real person that like has gone missing. And so like seeing, especially like there's the part where Wes McCrae is like, you know, girls go missing all the time, like what makes this special? But then you also have Sadie's story, and you're like, she's a person. Like any person who goes missing is important, you know.
And it's just like, how can you not see that Sadie is special? Like, look at her story. But
and like the story deserves to be exposed, but like he doesn't know the details of it. So.
I was looking at, I think it was a Twitter thread or something a little while ago about these murder podcasts, and people saying like, in a way, it's kind of grim, you know, like the fact that it has like so many fans, and they're all murder, and you're like, okay, like that's real dark. That was somebody's child, you know, that's somebody's family, you know.
Well, I heard especially with, actually, I think it is My Favorite Murder. They did a live show, and halfway through, someone stood up in the audience and said like, I'm a police officer and this is so wrong. Like, how are you laughing at this? How are you making jokes? How are you talking about this? Like, you guys are disgusting. Like, and I think like one of them started crying and the other one like yelled back and was like, but it was this kind of moment of them realizing and having the audience realize too that it does kind of break that barrier. And they were kind of saying, oh, we laugh at it and we deal with humor because this is something that we're darkly fascinated with, and we don't want to have it so dark all the time, which is why, you know, you make jokes or drink wine and do it at the same time. But to some people, it is a lot more serious, and it has a lot more weight behind it. So to see both of the sides of like, oh, this is just like a YA novel, but also like this is a deep thriller that you start getting really invested in.
Yeah.
It's kind of the two sides of it. But I think that was woven together very well.
Yeah. It almost makes me wonder if it's deliberate that Sadie wasn't super likable, of like, because she wasn't special. She was just a missing girl who your heart still super went out to without having to be this bright, bubbly person that people are super drawn to.
Yeah.
And I think also
she specifically wasn't the kind of girl who would make the national news.
Yeah, she's the kind of girl who can go missing. She's the kind of girl people don't notice. You know, she's like sleeping in a car. You know, like she's the kind of girl who like disappear and no one really cares except for Maybeth. But,
yeah.
Maybeth.
Well, that's actually one of the best things I think that book did, is it portrayed a really good depiction of the rural communities and poverty and how that really affects people and their mental state and, you know, where they're going in their lives. I think that did a really good job with that. And that was something that was more easy to empathize with, and also goes hand in hand with that, like, would anybody care, because they're not in a town that usually makes national news.
I think Maybeth is an interesting character too, because she was someone that was obviously like a mother figure for the girls, but you could see like her character flaws and that she wasn't always right. And there were periods of the book where I really kind of almost hated her. And yet she wasn't a bad guy by any means. She's just a complex character.
Very much human.
Like yeah.
The same with Sadie's mom. Like, she messed up a lot, but was still so complex once we met her on the page.
That's one of the issues with Maybeth, is that she's like very reductive about Claire, about their mom. Like, you know, she's kind of like, oh, some kids are just born bad. And I'm like, I'm sure she wasn't born bad. Like, you know. Yeah. Like Maybeth, I think sometimes is kind of like an unreliable narrator within the podcast.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think at one point she gives the podcast guy wrong information, or maybe even several points. I can't remember which one it is. I just remember that was the point where I was irritated at her, because she was like, Keith. What's that?
She loved Keith.
That's true. Yeah.
She thought he was the only good guy Claire dated.
Right. Yeah. So she's, you know, just like a terrible judge of character type of. Yeah. That's why I remember being really irritated at her and being like, no, you're wrong and stupid. And it was because of that I have that insight.
All of these characters though are just doing the best they can in a very real way, which is very different from the usual like escapism books.
They're all very realistic people.
For sure. How about that the twist with the postcard? That was the twist I did not see coming.
I mean, I think that's something that, like, it's laid out so clearly.
It is.
Yeah. And how, like, it's the thing that, like Sadie was trying to help, but it's the thing that, like, drove Maddie away from her and, like, eventually, like, drove Maddie to go with Keith. Like, when you know it was Sadie who sent it and not the mom, it, like, makes it even worse.
It's a clear piece of motivation. And like having it come later is like an extra kick in the gut. And you're like, no wonder she's so desperate to like make it right, so to speak, or get revenge because she feels like she caused it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really good examples of how like the two stories like layer over each other and they each reveal things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I love that idea where it circles around an event, but it doesn't tell you what it is, or it goes like the back and forth, and like you have kind of fill in the gaps to get to what the event was. Love that.
Yeah.
So in that way, I love kind of like finding out bit by bit as the characters do, which I thought this was the right book to do that with.
Yeah, for sure.
Great story.
That was really good.
So few books. Like, a book is an in-your-head experience, obviously. And so there aren't very many books where I will like gasp or something. But when that moment happened, I had my headphones in and I was like cleaning my house. And I was like, no. And then I like looked up, like, right, okay, no one's in the house with me. Like, no one saw me do that.
You're not like in a coffee shop. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, speaking of twists, I was listening to Courtney Summers did an episode of First Draft. Is it First Draft podcast?
Was
Yes.
there any?
Yes. I suddenly blinked. I was like, I haven't listened to it in a while. That is the right name, right? Anyway, she did an episode of that where she talked about Sadie. And she talked about how, like, in her original idea, she was going to make, like, the identity of Maddie's killer, like, the big twist and, like, a secret. But then she decided that, like, she should just reveal that right at the beginning. Which, like, I personally think, like, having read it, like, it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Mhm. I
think
was kind of bracing myself for a twist a little bit of like, oh, they told us right away. This can't be real.
Yeah, same. I liked that it subverted my expectations in that way.
Yeah,
It's like,
I did.
no, he is
I did
going to-
appreciate that. Yeah, that it didn't just kind of do the typical thing. But also, I like that if you can tell me the twist right away and then give me a new twist later, I love that. I like doubly respect your writing because that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's
I
what
think
the
it-
postcard was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been really hard to, like, keep it a secret. Like, Sadie would have had to be a really unreliable narrator, which I think would have been hard to believe that she would have, for some reason, just never said who it was until, you know, like, it would have been really hard to do. And I don't think it would have felt realistic or earned if she had tried to do it that way.
Yeah, and I also think that it adds this layer of complexity to like our reading experience of like our instinct for a lot of us was to doubt Sadie at first, be like, oh, she must be wrong about who the killer was. Like, why would Sadie know? But then, like, yeah, Sadie knew who the killer was. She knew exactly who it was.
Ugh, Keith.
The worst.
My worst.
Yeah. And I liked that, I mean, even though, like, I don't think it's outright said until later in the book, it wasn't really a secret that he, like, raped Sadie either. You know, like, it was fairly clear that there was something very inappropriate in his relationship with her. And then, like, she talks to what's-her-face. I literally just listened to this part. The one with who has a baby, who, like, dated him for a while, and her brother is friends with him. Yeah, and she, like, found the picture and stuff.
I just listened to this book a week
Yeah,
ago.
it's an M, and like I literally just listened to that scene, and I can't think of her name right now. There's so many characters, but yeah, like I feel like she could have like kept that as like a shocking twist, which I think was like respectful to not be like, "Ooh, shocking twist, he raped her," you know.
It's rape, child rape,
God, Megan.
plot twist.
Yeah,
That
there was,
would have felt very icky.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, having sexual abuse in the story definitely added to it, but I also like that she did it in a somewhat respectful manner, and it wasn't just the like, oh wow, shocking, and like, well, I don't really know what else to put in, so I guess this is just
How can I make it more horrific?
yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the base of the book was almost just the trauma of that. Of like that is such a big part of who Sadie is, and like just all of the terrible things. Like it's,
For sure.
there's Emma.
Yeah, I'm back.
What was the brother's name of that girl?
I don't remember.
Because I'm trying to think of like, okay, so which segments stick out to me? And for me, it was everything in the brother's town was that big, like, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that's her like sort of romance with that one boy.
Yeah, and that was the big time jump thing of like you knew he knew, and then she went to the house and all of that stuff happened, but you didn't know how all of that kind of played out, which was my big like, no, I want more of this. What happens next here?
Yeah.
And then it's just like a casual thing later on the podcast side of, oh, and in this town that he barely pays attention to at first, they had this big scandal.
Yeah, he like
now.
doesn't realize how connected it all is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot of, I'm trying to remember which, it's like a certain kind of irony. I can never remember which one it is. But like where like the readers know something that like the characters don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this book.
Yeah. I love it.
Tension.
I'm trying so hard to find a character list. I can't.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's so tricky when you listen to the audiobook of like, there's nothing that can help me.
Normally I have the book in front of me.
Yeah, I have like the CDs in front of me, so that's not
Oh, I literally I just took it back to the store because I didn't like it, and I'm like, I should have kept it for like 3 more days.
Maureen or something, maybe? I don't remember.
Lucerne.
Something like that.
It sounds like a name she would have.
So I know Aaron hates it. I'm curious how everyone else feels about it, because I think it's like the perfect ending for this type of book. Because I think like a happy ending, like Sadie's totally fine and like goes on to like live her life, like would have felt.
I think I want to know why Aaron hates it before I give my opinion.
I hate, because the funny thing is, I don't want to give away too much, and I won't, for the female of the species, but it had a similar kind of thing, and I loved it. So my issue with this one was that it was like unresolved. Even if they had found her dead, I would have been like, okay, we know we can close it out. It's sad, but it was just hanging. And I think it's like, I don't know. I just
I don't know if it was like she did. Like,
I'm pretty sure she's dead. I'm pretty sure she's dead, but I also like that there wasn't like a concrete answer, because like I don't know, I feel like having listened to like true crime and stuff, that's how a lot of these stories are. Like a lot of times you don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah. So like I felt for me it was close, but for them it wasn't.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident in what happened.
Sure, but like, does her family find out? Like, is she just one of those women that's just missing forever and assumed dead? Or are they going to get closure? You know, like, and I totally agree that happens in real life, but I don't think we have all the shitty things in fiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with you, which is probably also why I don't like crime podcasts, and why I didn't like the ending, because I'm just like, if you're going to tell me a story, I need you to tell me a story. Like, you can't just give up halfway through and be like, we don't know the end. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. I want you to tell me, even if it's bad, I want you to tell me how it ends.
I think there's room in fiction for both like escapist, like idealized versions of things, and also for like reality of this is what really happened.
I don't even feel like that would be idealized.
Oh, definitely not. But I think there's also room for like showing how the world really is and what really does happen.
Yeah,
so
I think the end fit the book. Like, it fit the themes and it fit the story and it fit the way that it was written. But I just am like,
I'm going to fully agree with Rachel here that if it's a story, it needs to like wrap up in some way. So
I just looked up Megan's eating pizza.
Aaron brought me pizza.
How did you get that? How?
That is how you like chat, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah,
I live chat, just have everyone have pizza.
Just random foods, just different foods. Yeah. See, I don't hate ambiguity in an ending. I don't think it belongs in every book, but in a book like this, I like that it's
and I didn't even feel like it was that ambiguous.
Yeah, and I also didn't feel like it didn't wrap it up, because like Keith's dead. Like that's what I get.
He did. Like he did.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think I just wanted some closure for the family.
Yeah.
Is more than anything else. And I know that's the thing that bugs me in real life stories too. If I watch something on Netflix, I'm like, oh, like they have no closure ever.
I never know the answer. Yeah.
Well, for the family too, right? It's like, yeah, she's probably dead, but like just the not knowing where's her final resting place, what happened to her, where is her body right now? Like, they would like something to bury so that they can go to her graveside, you know, like all this type of things is what makes it really tragic in real life. So to have that repeated pattern potentially in a book, to me, the story's not done, right? Because they could find her body. That just wasn't added, right?
Yeah.
So
if
that was my
had
big issue with it.
Yeah, if they had like an epilogue even, or like one extra chapter of even the podcast being like, and they found her body 10 days later and da-da-da, or like, oh, it's just been identified, or even if they had just been like, oh, police have just identified a body of a teen girl, more news to come, or something like that, where it's like more solidly hinted at, instead of this like, and then we go off into the wild and we don't know what's gonna happen. And, ooh, maybe something happened.
I don't think I would have liked that as much as
same.
I like the way it is. Yeah.
No,
that would have felt like too like closed up for me. I wouldn't have.
That's all right. And
yes, again, it would have had to have had a pokey ending if they found the body. Like, we would have had to have had Wes McCrae like and I guess the truth has died with Sadie. Just direct eye contact with the camera.
And like the very beginning of the book was how so many girls go missing, and most of these girls, their families never get that closure. Like it would have felt weird to me unless she'd lived and that was the closure.
I think there is a way that it could have been done, and I was disappointed that there wasn't. And like I said, the female of the species, I feel like does that really well.
Okay.
So that,
well, again, like I'm not necessarily mad at endings that do that. I'm just mad at certain books that do that ending.
Mm-hmm.
And this works very nicely with the thriller aspect and the podcast aspect and the true crime aspect. Love that. But this is like a whole other book. But I read Wilder Girls by Rory Power.
Yeah.
Minor spoilers for the ending. And this is one of the books where very minor. It's one of the books that it does that sort of like. Okay, here. How about I'll hold my hand up until I'm done spoiling it, okay? And then everybody listening can just take their headphones out. All right. It does one of the endings where it's like, and then they sailed into the beyond, and who knows what's gonna happen. No, you need to tell me the whole story. This is not the type of book you could just end on one of those like cliffhangers. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay. I read that same
I can hear you through my headphones anyway.
Spoiling it too. Okay. I read the same. I read Wilder Girls, and I had the exact same issue. I was so angry at the end of that book and then I read Sadie and Wilder Girls back to back and screamed both times. Okay, done spoiling. You're safe.
Yeah, I don't even care that much about spoilers.
It wasn't really
excited for this book.
No, it's like the biggest of big spoilers.
I just had to scream a little bit because I agreed with Rachel.
See, I haven't read Wilder Girls yet, but I think that would bother me more than Sadie did.
I think Wilder Girls was
good. It was a great book, but that ending bothered me so much.
Because I don't really like endings like that.
And you know what it is? And I could have a full chat about Wilder Girls. It's because it's
I think
really,
we probably will. So
I'm just saying it's really literary. That's why it had that ending.
It's okay, Megan. It's okay. We're not gonna spoil anything.
I know. I will enjoy
a chat about it.
So.
Yeah, we definitely need to have a chat about it. But there are other books that do that kind of ambiguous sort of maybe who knows what's going to happen, like Sail into the Beyond, sort of whatever. They do that very well. That I don't mind that as, because it's like, it's an uncertain future, but at least we have the pillars of, something set up or something solid. And I think I like that more. Because I'm just a very anxious person, and I'm like, I need you to tell me what's happening, when it's happening, if anything's confirmed. I need all the information. And if people are just like, no, maybe, who knows? I'm like, that bothers me. So
yeah, I just need closure for at least like one major thing, and so just knowing she killed Keith is enough for me.
Yeah.
All right,
that's why
I would have been mad if they hadn't done that.
Series. Which I know a lot of people hate because it's super ambiguous, but I love that one too.
Sorry, which one?
Delirium.
The Delirium trilogy.
It's just there's no closure.
There's no closure at all.
I mean, the dystopian world gets closure.
Sort of.
Yeah. I feel like for me, I did have a moment of like, did I love this ending for Sadie or did I hate this ending? And for me, it was because like the book is very much marketed as like, we're going to try and stop Sadie from dying. Like even the tagline on the book is like, if she dies, the truth dies with her or whatever. And so I felt initially like I was promised like either Sadie's going to die and take the truth with her, or we're going to save Sadie and get the truth. Yeah. And so I had to take a minute to be like, how do I feel about this? In the end, I liked it.
I think it stuck with me more because of the way the ending is.
Yeah, for sure.
Did we read any Anne Griswold's comments while I wasn't listening?
No.
I don't want to read them again if we already did it.
No, we didn't.
She agrees with you.
Yeah, so she read the same books in the same order as Erin and agrees with all things, basically.
She did bring up a thing a little bit ago of that I also thought, which was I kept asking why not go to the police. I guess they had little faith in the cops, but once she found the proof in his motel room, I saw.
Wow. Okay. What was that?
Yeah, I did find myself like I understood why you weren't going to the cops, but also like call the cops at this point.
Yeah, right.
It was like she wanted to kill him. Like she
Yeah.
didn't want him to go to jail. She wanted to kill him.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, she definitely did not have a lot of faith in like adults. Like,
Yeah, and that's hard to relate to because I would call the cops, but I've had a very different upbringing.
Yeah, I've had a very cushy upbringing.
Yeah, like she's been let
and I
down by
think,
the
you know, like seeing how people like Maybeth didn't see through his like charm and liked him and stuff like that, that she probably didn't trust that anything would actually happen to him, even with the proof.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and like, yeah, she wanted to be the one to like dispense justice because he like hurt her. So
Yeah.
And Anne Griswold also mentioned, I think she always planned on this being a one-way trip, which is part of why she didn't call.
yeah, well, she threw all
Yeah.
her stuff in the dumpster before she left.
Yeah.
She did not plan on coming home.
Yeah.
Poor Sadie.
And the boy at the beginning and end of Sadie, whose name I cannot remember. I just want to pinch his cheeks. You're so precious.
I don't know which boy.
The boy that she liked.
Oh, the wish list.
Who definitely liked her.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
See,
Yeah, that
the ending for you.
Yeah, that whole segment in that town was so interesting to me of like her meeting that boy and like the very targeted following on social media and like very deliberately getting into that group, but then just admitting what she did was kind of weird. And then everything
Yeah.
afterwards, like stealing the phone of like sometimes she's so deliberate and sometimes she's so rash and just
Yeah.
Which I think is why I didn't like it, because I was just like, you're not making smart decisions.
it felt real though of like if it's just some girl who like
Like this 19-year-old who's
we're so used to the like YA protagonists for going out to murder people being all like trained assassins or fantasy people of like no, this is just someone in our world who has no idea what they're doing and like
Yeah.
you can plan out some parts and some of it's just like okay the phone's there I don't know I'm just gonna take it when I can.
Maybe I just have too much anxiety for this book.
The one thing that I had to like pause the audiobook because I was like, really? That's how you did it? Was when she puts the rock through the window and keeps holding on to it. Why would you not throw the rock? Why would you put your whole bare fist through a window? What were you thinking?
Forgot about that part.
Yeah, me too. I guess I blocked that out because it just
That was the
made me
only
cringe
part
so
where
hard.
I was like, you did not think this for like 5 seconds. Like if you had thought about it for 5 seconds.
And that wasn't even the same kind of situation as the phone where you had to make a decision right
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Like she had 5 seconds to think this through.
yeah.
I just like rage yelled about it. That was the only thing that I felt actual anger about. I was like, oh, so we're just gonna injure her now. Cool. I have no clue how long we've even been live.
38 minutes.
minutes.
Heyo.
You can see it on the
Top
corner.
I know,
For
that's
mine,
kind of cool.
Way off. Mine says we've been on for an hour and 40 minutes.
That's
weird.
definitely not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's done that every time we've used StreamYard, even in the practice one that we did.
Oh, bizarre.
That would make me feel like I was losing time because
I know, like, what reality am I in?
Yeah.
Oh man, we had this is kind of like slightly off topic, but the other day I was in the car with my mom and we were driving and I looked, oh no, sorry, it was with my dad's car, and I looked down and I was like, I'm pretty sure that your clock says 1:30, but it's 2:30. He was like, oh, or no, the other way around. It was 1:30. It said 2:30. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And he was like, oh yeah, I guess my clock's wrong. And then in front of our eyes, it switched back to 1:30, and we were just like, We just jumped dimensions. What just happened? What reality are we in? Oh my god! It was just like it's probably like
Throw away the whole car.
but like yes, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Very bizarre.
Very
Clearly
weird.
listening to you.
Yeah, I was like, we were in the
yesterday,
Matrix,
did you
like,
say?
what's happening? It was a couple days ago.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say weird stuff happened a lot yesterday.
Oh.
I'm just gonna say. I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde or whatever, but
I don't think it is.
You're the
No.
witchy one, shouldn't you know?
I swear it always is, according to the
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah, there's just a thing to blame it on. Mercury's in retrograde. Like it is. I don't know,
Well,
but
I
it
swear we had
was.
like a small earthquake last night that just nobody felt. Either that or I have a ghost in my house because my necklace started just like tap. Like I have a tree, like a necklace tree beside my mirror on the dresser, and my necklace just started tapping like really fast on the mirror.
Oh.
Like somebody had shaken it, right? And then it stopped really abruptly. And I like went over and looked and none of them were shaking or anything. And I was like, And Sean felt it too. He was like, what the heck was, or heard it as well. It's like, what the heck was that? I was like, either an earthquake or a ghost. One of the two.
Huh.
The only two possibilities.
No, the only two possibilities. Yeah.
Cool. Weird.
Kelly over there Googling.
No idea. I know. I looked on Twitter in the middle of the night for like Victoria earthquake and there was nothing. Right?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's a ghost then. Cool.
Definitely.
Cool.
If it's
fine.
maybe it's just, it's just messing with your necklaces. That's okay.
In my last apartment, we lived near an airport and like a construction area. And so every now and then the whole apartment complex would shake. And it was
Whoa.
horrifying every time. Because we didn't live in an earthquake area, so it was just always whatever was happening at random. So it would make the whole thing shake.
I've now discovered earthquaketrack.com, and your area has had 0 earthquakes in the last 24 hours, 0 in the last 7 days. But skipping ahead, 67 earthquakes in the last 365 days.
It's a lot of
What?
earthquakes, Erin.
I'm sure they're very little, but yes.
Oh yeah. Well, we're on that giant fault thing. So
Yeah.
it's a lot
Line.
I like the
you know what? I don't need your pass.
All right. Any other Sadie things?
We've run through my discussion points.
So we all agree Sadie's super dead. That was my only question was, did anyone think Sadie was alive?
No.
No, I doubt it.
They didn't even layer with something that could have been hopeful. I was like, no.
Given
not
how poorly Keith hid Maddie, I have to think that they'll find her eventually.
Mhm. See, that might even bother me too because he's dead. He needs to suffer more. This is not enough. He has 2 girls now.
That's it. That's in general how I feel about the death penalty. Is I'm like, no, they deserve to like suffer.
Actually, and this is getting on a darker, grimmer path. But if you look up the John Oliver death penalty video, he talks about how it basically is them being tortured to death.
Yeah.
So, which I don't know.
Wow.
That's
Cool.
not
Cool.
great.
Cool.
But, yeah.
Cool.
But that's what makes me mad. He died of an infection and he needed to suffer a little bit more.
If you're dying of an infection, you're gonna suffer quite a
I guess
bit.
that's-
Get an infection.
I guess that's true. And he refused to go to the hospital, didn't he? Yeah.
Probably.
And then she like dragged him there.
Yeah.
I think maybe
But
that's
also
where
someone like him, I'm like, yeah, he should just be eliminated from
I
this
guess
game.
that's true. Yeah, fair point. With the
Like,
justice
more-
system, he'd probably get out and do it again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so all of the like tags from other girls, like closure on that of like
Oh,
I would have thought the podcast people like find them, help them. I don't know. I guess that they ever get the tags or no, probably not.
Forgot about the
I think
clothing
he
tags,
did, but the
Yeah, me too.
hotel clerk guy knew about the tags.
Mm-hmm.
But Sadie probably had them on her whenever she.
True.
But so if her body gets discovered, they would find the tags.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not that would. I would guess the police wouldn't particularly care to
Yeah.
track down girls by their first names only.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I would think, I don't think she gets discovered. Like, I think it's like there was no more to the book because that was all there was to the story.
no closure. I'm not okay.
I've got purposefully no closure.
Yeah.
Child is so mad in the background.
Oh, what's Simon mad about?
He's real mad about road tripping.
Oh,
He just got back from Atlanta, so
he has such an easy life. What does he have to be mad about?
Very do that.
They get mad at everything.
Oh, and Griswold agrees. Sadie is real dead.
On that cheerful note,
Are we good for tonight, I guess?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, so thank you for watching, and Griswold, and anyone else who's watching.
And the other one else who might be watching is probably not.
But yeah, so thanks for watching tonight. Definitely read the book if you're watching this and you haven't read it yet, because it's definitely an interesting book, an interesting format. And yeah, so we will see you guys. Do we have a topic?
Yes, it is a general writing Q&A.
yay!
All right, so we'll be able to answer your writing questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you on Tuesday and Thursday with regular videos, and then on Sunday for our live chat. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We're gonna wait for a while because of stream. Yeah.
Hey, lots of weaving, all the weaving. Bye.
Waving. Jazz hands.
Spirit fingers.
So happy.